For a limited time, $1 gets you full access to all the automotive industry news and content CBTnews.com has to offer. CBT News. Subscribe today. Welcome to CBT News with Bridget Fitzpatrick.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to CBT News. I'm Bridget Fitzpatrick. Thank you so much for joining us. Here's Chris Riggins with today's top stories.
Thanks, Bridget. Starting off our coverage, EV startup Fisker reported a broader first quarter loss than expected and cut its production guidance for the rest of the year. The EV maker now expects to produce between 32,000 and 36,000 units in 2023, compared to the initial target of 42,400. As of March 31st, the company had roughly $652.5 million in cash and cash equivalents, in comparison to the $1.04 billion a year prior. On May 9th, Iveco is set to loosen its ties with U.S. startup Nikola as it purchases the full ownership of their joint venture, which develops battery, electric, and fuel cell heavy-duty trucks. Meanwhile, Nikola and other U.S. startups are facing challenges as their market valuations have decreased in recent months. Through the deal, Iveco claims it would produce a $48 million one-off impact on its first quarter income statement. In other EV news, Lucid Motors shared its financial report for the first quarter ahead of its call with shareholders and reported a net loss of $780 million despite revenues of $149.4 million. As a result, the company decided to cut its production target to, quote, more than 10,000 vehicles. Still, the EV maker remains optimistic about its future. Peter Rawlinson, Lucid's CEO and CTO, notes that the automaker expects to unveil its second vehicle later this year. Wrapping up our coverage, Tesla broke ground on a new lithium refinery in Corpus Christi, Texas, with CEO Elon Musk and Texas Governor Greg Abbott in attendance. To secure a local supply of lithium hydroxide, a crucial component used to create batteries for its electric vehicles, Tesla is reportedly investing $375 million to develop the Gulf Coast facility. Don't go anywhere. Coming up next is Ed Roberts, the Chief Operations Officer at Bozard Ford Lincoln. We'll be right back.
Here's a look back to one of our many interviews with industry leaders.
Tell us a little bit about, now that your chairmanship has ended and somebody's taking the reins from you, let's go back and talk about the year in review, if you would. Because I know that you've been faced with some real challenges as chairman of the NADA. So with tax issues and floods, and it's been crazy, right?
All kinds of stuff. You know, at the start of my chairmanship, we were talking with the CFPB about guidance that they had, and that has slowed down. And dealers are a little bit more comfortable with their finance departments and making sure that everything is done properly there. Right. And, you know, from a government perspective, not that they've stopped, but we as dealers need to keep vigilant and make sure we're doing the right thing there. Right. Tax reform you had mentioned, you know, we were knee deep in that, making sure that we had estate planning done, interest deductibility, LIFO deductibility.
Yeah. And those are real threats dealers were concerned about.
Major. You know, that could have put some dealers in financial straits or put some dealers out of business.
Right.
Delivering the news dealers count on for 10 years. Subscribe today and join thousands of other automotive professionals. CBT News, 10 years strong.
Ed Roberts, the Chief Operations Officer at Bozard Ford Lincoln, is set to release his new book, Mile One, A Leadership Journey. Throughout Ed's career, he has gained extensive experience in leadership positions and has developed a deep understanding of what it takes to inspire and motivate people to achieve their goals. So on today's show, Ed is going to walk us through what readers can expect from the book. Take a look.
Talk to me a little bit about the book. What inspired you to write the book?
People's been telling me for years that I needed to put a book together because when you really connect with people and you take them on that journey, you really break it down into manageable steps where it's not a task. It's really a fun journey along the way. So I wanted to put that in. Yes, it has the same elements of what we need to do as leaders in our industries. But a lot of times we set things out there as this big old giant milestone. That's where we want to get to.
Sure.
And then when we share that with the team, they don't see how to get there. And it's like traveling a journey of 1,000 miles. You can't travel that last mile until you travel the first one. So it really talks about breaking it down into manageable steps that everybody can visualize what that next step is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's always that next mile one to work on. Yeah. So it really just breaks it down in simple terms where everybody on board understands what that next element is.
That's great. As you know, in retail automotive, we don't have a lot of training that takes place for our managers. We just have never really seemed to have that. And there's sales training out there in many cases. But when it comes to developing leaders, that is where the industry, in my humble opinion, falls terribly short, right? I was a manager at a number of dealerships in my 25, 27-year career in retail automotive, and I was never really given that many opportunities to be in leadership or management training. And the industry really desperately needs that, especially now as we see this industry go through such a transformation, right? Talk to us about the importance of developing leaders at the dealership level.
Well, a lot of times we see people that are really good at their job and they're a good salesperson, they become the next desk manager. Well, because he was a good salesperson doesn't necessarily make them a great desk manager. What ends up happening, in more times than not, and I talk about that in the book as well, busy versus effective, is we'll promote somebody that's done a great job in the previous role. Well, the previous role is not doing that job anymore. The next role is doing that job through people, allowing them to be able to do that job. And a lot of times, as we move into those roles, we move into a leadership role, we move in, and when our people struggle with doing something, we just take it off their plate because we was already good at it. That's why we're here. And we think that's the best thing to do. Let me just help them out so they can move on to something else.
That's right.
What that ends up doing is making us busy and not very effective in the role that we're in.
That's right.
And in order to be effective, we have to get it done through them, because if we just take it off their plate and do it for them, the next time it comes around, they just do the same thing again, and it ends up on your plate. But if we educate them on how to do it, now we're creating the next leader.
That's right.
And I put a post out there not too long ago that talked about delegating, because we do have to delegate. But if we only delegate tasks, we get followers.
Yeah.
If we delegate the authority to make the decisions to do those things and empower them, then we're developing leaders. That's so right. Those are the elements. It's not groundbreaking on changing how we create new leaders. It's just having a path for them to get there.
All right, be sure to watch this interview in its entirety right here at cbtnews.com. That wraps up our show for today, but we invite you to join us back here again tomorrow morning for all the latest news and trends impacting the retail automotive industry. And be sure to follow us on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Bridget Fitzpatrick. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.
CBT News, your #1 resource for auto industry news and content. Join the #1 most watched newscast in the automotive industry. CBT News. Subscribe today.